Today, TorchPro welcomes on one of the most dynamic lacrosse players in the world, Ament. Thanks for joining us today, man. Excited to dive into your journey.
Thanks for having me on, Danny.
Yeah, so you have a lot of accolades. You were a three-time All-American at Penn State, first-time Tworton finalist in program history, Big Ten Player of the Year. List goes on, and now you're playing the PLL. So I want to start where it all began. So where'd you grow up playing the game of lacrosse, and how'd you fall in love with it?
Yeah, so I grew up in Doylestown, Pennsylvania. It's about an hour northeast of Philadelphia. And I originally was a soccer player. My dad played soccer in college, and my older brother, Brandon, came home from school, I think in like second grade. One of his buddies wanted him to start lacrosse. And then soon my brother Blake followed. And then obviously I'm the youngest of three, so I kind of just follow and do whatever they do. And ended up kind of just falling in love with it, being able to like play up with them and, in the backyard, being a goalie or being a human shield, whatever it was needed. I definitely was not necessarily picked on, but ganged up on a little bit and toughened up by those two, and just fell in love with the game. So really, really lucky. And then kind of my dad obviously loves soccer, but soon fell in love with it with us and coached us, and still is. My mom and dad are still our number one supporters still today.
Yeah, that little brother lifestyle. And so how much do you think your soccer background really helped your game on the lacrosse field, if at all?
Yeah, I think a lot. I mean, obviously there's the footwork side of things that, it's probably one of my bigger strengths as a
That's your
player.
game.
So, that's a lot of soccer stuff. And then I really thought about, because I played actually defense in soccer. So like when I'm riding, like it's the exact same thing of a right wing player or a left wing player, going down the field and, having to defend him at full speed and different things like that. When I was younger, definitely using soccer moves for lacrosse moves for soccer, and vice versa. The biggest thing that I say to kids is, from a multi-sport capacity, is playing soccer. I'm not a big specialization guy, and playing soccer, like I played all the way up through my senior year of high school. And it was great for me because I wasn't, the guy. I didn't have to be, the committed Division I athlete. I just, could be a role player. I still got play time and still did my job, but my life wasn't on the line as much. So, I recommend young kids playing sports for as long as they can, multiple different sports, just because you learn different things based off of the roles that you're playing. And you can enjoy it a little bit in a little bit of a different way.
Yeah, I like that. And a lot of the athletes that we talk to, it seems to be a common theme that like they played multiple sports growing up. And I think there's a lot of crossover that people don't really understand between each sport. And so a lot of lessons were learned that they can then translate into maybe their sport, which for you was lacrosse. So now you get to high school, right? And the recruiting scene kind of hits hot. And so it's wild because kids around our age, when we were getting recruited, so we're about the same age, graduated high school in 2015, kids were getting offers to commit to big time schools before they even touched a varsity field, right? And so whether it's Virginia, Duke, whoever it may be, they haven't seen them play in like big time competition. I guess, did you fall into that category as well as getting recruited like before you were even playing varsity lacrosse?
I did get recruited before I stepped on the field for varsity. That's for sure. I played JV my freshman year. It was myself, Jake Hervada, who was a three-time captain at Delaware, face-off guy, and Connor Keating, who was an All-American at UPenn. So we were the second line midfielders for our JV team my freshman year. So I always tell kids that because there's a lot that can happen over your course of your career. But no, I remember when Ryan Conrad committed, after the summer or during the summer of our freshman year going to our sophomore year at a recruiting camp. And then it kind of domino affected from there. And, with all of this stuff that goes on now with the whole September 1 junior year thing, I think it puts a lot more pressure on the coaches, which in my opinion is a little bit more fair, because the coaches are the ones that should feel the pressure, not necessarily the players. These are 16, 15-year-old kids, like, and they've got pressure of high school and what they're wearing to class, let alone where they're going to spend the next 4 years of their life. So I'm a big proponent of it, but yeah, I committed with shaggy hair, braces on my teeth, probably 135 pounds. So Coach T still jokes about that, like still to this day. Was texting with him earlier today because they got their first game tomorrow. So he still jokes about the fact that, I probably was maybe just scratching puberty by the time.
Yeah, literally. Well, I think they made a good pick, and I also am a big proponent of the new rules. I think that's huge. Like, it's crazy that kids are choosing where they want to go to college and so much of their future prior to even having that high school experience. So I think it's great. And when you get there, you guys, the program had been along for a long time, but you guys had not yet been a contender, right? And so what was that process like, kind of going from kind of middle of the pack to that contender and bringing them to their first ever Final Four weekend?
Yeah, I think a lot of us in the way that I play, majority of us, like we liked that underdog mentality and being the team of firsts. We called the 2019 the team of firsts. First Big Ten championship, first playoff win, first Final Four, first regular season Big Ten championship, and a few records shattered by a few guys. So we definitely we're hungry. But more importantly, I was on a team, and I remember having these conversations with Chris Sabia in our leadership group, because me and him were on a pretty successful team in high school at Haverford, where we went undefeated, and we're the number one team in the country. And we always just talked about this confidence in one another, and we started to instill it in one another. But I think that senior group, that class that I came in with, I talked about Chris Sabia, but Tommy Wright, Kevin Fox, Matt Donnelly, Robbie Black, Dylan Folds, all of these guys who I communicate with still every day. Those guys, like we just took ownership of the thing, and I think instead of it being the coaches versus the players, we went to the coaches and said, hey, we're doing this together. And we had a lot of candid conversations and a lot of roadblocks that we had to get around. But I think it just started at the top. I think, if you look at the way that Chris and I competed against each other in practice every day, you'd get a good sense of kind of what we set the bar to. A lot of words said, probably a few fists thrown, but, all love and all just knowing that like we're making each other better. And I think the collective group would say it's a much more rewarding thing to be the first and have to deal with some stuff for the first 3 years of your career, than just be another name in a record book. And, we didn't quite finish the job. And that's what I still tell the kids that are on the team right now. Like, yes, we were good, but we didn't do it. So, it's on them we put them in the right direction, and now it's on them to, take that ball and run with it as fast as they can.
Yeah, that's awesome. And so you talk about kind of the first 3 years and building up to your senior year and putting it all together. But in those first 3 years, I guess, how challenging was that process was it getting all the players on the same page? Was it getting coaches and the players? I guess, how long did it take for you to kind of build that rapport with bringing everyone together as one group?
Yeah, I think this is, you can say this about any team, like it's just culture. And it's, Coach T always said, like, culture is a verb, it's not a noun. And it's an everyday, like it's an action every single day that you have to take. And I think, it was buy-in from the top. It's not to say that the seniors that were there before us didn't buy in, but I don't think they really knew how to, because they weren't taught that way, kind of growing into it. There were some tough moments. Our sophomore year arguably was just as talented as our senior year team, and maybe more talented in all honesty. But we didn't have the right pieces and the right buy-in, collectively from the top. And I think that was like the hardest thing for us. And once we got there, we were like, guys, this is our last run. Like, I'm not leaving any stone unturned. I'm not going to be losing a game because a guy goes out in the middle of the week, or I'm not going to lose a game because somebody misses class. Like we need to button this thing up. And definitely some tougher times. We had a lot of like 1-goal losses, like a lot of overtime losses, and just like ones that you're just like, I wish I could have it back. But those are all kind of learning experience. I think those were the fuel for the fire. Getting spanked by Maryland a bunch of times with Rambo and Heacock,
Yeah.
and finally being able to beat them. And, there's a bunch of different things that I remember from those younger years that like still infuriate me. And I think that's why we were so driven the whole season, but really in that Big Ten schedule, because those rivalries definitely run deep.
Yeah. And I know that journey of all too well of the college lacrosse culture, kids going out on the weekdays, maybe missing class, and it affecting actual play on the field. So I think the journey of you guys getting to your senior year and putting it all together is probably what I would think is one of the most rewarding parts of that season.
100%. Yeah, it was the most rewarding part of it. It didn't come easy, and like that was the good stuff, and it sucked at times. And like, we were like, what are we doing? We were 8-6 in 2018, and then we were 16-2 in 2019. So like, it took a lot. But I think that the number one thing that it came down to was just the ownership side of it. Instead of pointing fingers saying, hey, this guy's doing this, and just saying, all right, well, if that guy's doing that, well, then we need to look in the mirror because there's obviously something wrong. And I think that started from, the captains down, and a lot of guys, I mentioned, but like, guys like Matt Donnelly, guys like Robbie Black, guys that didn't play at all or really at all, Trevor Scollins, and those guys were like the heartbeat of the team. Mm-hmm. And, when you have bench players, taking just as much pride as the guys putting the balls in the back of the net, that's when you can start to get buy-in from those younger guys that maybe aren't getting as much play time.
Yeah, and I think every successful team needs those glue guys, and everyone 100%. Just needs to do their job. Yep. And so I want to flash forward to now your professional lacrosse career. So you talked about a team of being first. You were actually the first pick in the PLL draft, if I'm not mistaken. And so how was your transition to the PLL? And I guess, did it help being drafted to a team with some of the best attackmen in the league, like Marcus Holman and Will Manny?
Yeah, I mean, playing with Marcus, Will, Tom Shriver's not too bad. The guys that I play with suited my playing style pretty well. So, in terms of the adjustment, there really wasn't a whole lot of adjustment. I would say for me, other than, the shot clock's a lot shorter, the field's a little shorter, like just the rules of the game. But those guys were so great with me and just making me feel confident from day one. Tom called me like 2 days after I got drafted and was like, hey man, like, congrats on getting drafted, all this stuff. He's like, just so you know, like one of my biggest regrets when I was a rookie is I like didn't demand enough. He's like, you're good enough. You got drafted number one, like own it, believe in yourself and go. And when you have the best player in the world telling you that, it's a pretty big confidence boost for me. So, those guys really just welcomed me into the locker room and created a nice, comfortable surrounding for me to be in.
Yeah. And so seeing that leadership from Tom is awesome. And I guess a point as an outside viewer of the PLL, sometimes to me, it can feel like it's almost more of like a summer league game and it's just like a bunch of talent, but like how much is there actually a culture from program to program in the PLL?
Yeah, no, every team is completely different in terms of the way that the locker room's structured. Like we are way, way, way different than like the Redwoods and, and the Whip Snakes and, but that's good. That's what sports are about. Everybody's culture is different. The Chaos have a very like, they're all Canadians and they, just like taking risks and they play very chaotic. And that culture bleeds into the way that they play on the field. And, it's certainly a thing. And that's something that we preach. And that's something that, we're really trying to harp on this year. As I think we've fallen short the past 2 seasons, is making sure that culture, that standard, like never gets compromised. And instead of letting things slide, speak up this year if you see something and don't let it get to a point where we're living in regret.
Yeah. And you talked about the rules in your first answer there of the difference between a college game and the professional game and shorter field, shorter shot clock, some other things, a 2-point line. What's more fun to play in college or PLL?
I wish the PLL was 15-minute quarters. If the PLL was 15-minute quarters, I would 100% say the PLL. College, there's definitely more scheme because the shot clock's longer. So, you know, I think I'd probably say pro, just because I think the 2-point arc adds an element to the defense that really changes the way that defenses have to play. It's like when they put in the 3-point arc in basketball, it's like you have to defend the perimeter. You can't just pack it in. And so, you know, having the 2-point arc, I think is really cool. And you know, it's a much faster game, and I like run and gun style. You know, you don't really feel as bad if you take a shot and you miss, because you know you're going to get the ball back in 50 seconds. So, you know, I like it, but you know, I do wish they weren't 48 minutes. They were 60 minutes, because they do go by a little bit too quick sometimes.
You want to keep playing. And so I think the Rabels, especially Paul, have done like an incredible job with the marketing and branding of this league. I think as a consumer, I'm watching 10 times more PLL games than I ever did MLL games. So I think I've done a great job. But I guess as a player, what are you most excited about for the league's future?
Where to start? You know, I'm there are a bunch of different things. Obviously, you know, they do such a great job with promotion and different things like that. You know, obviously, probably moving forward, there's probably gonna be cities at some point. I would say in 5 years. So that's something to look forward to. And then, you know, continuing to really grind this thing out. I think one thing that's cool about the PLL is that like we're building it with them, and they want our input, and we're not necessarily, you know, I look at this stuff with like the MLB right now with the MLBPA. It's like we're not fighting against each other right now. We're really understanding that like in order for this thing to build, it needs to be together. So continuing on that process, and you know, it's never going to be perfect, and not everybody's going to be happy, but they're certainly listening to us and they're on the right way. So you know, that stuff, the player movement side of things that got us installed this year. There's some salary cap stuff. So continuing to expand and make it more like a professional sports league, in any way possible. You know, that's what I'm most excited for, because like you said, with Paul and Mike at the forefront of this, Paul does not like being told no at all. So, and if there's one guy I'm going to follow business wise with this thing, it's certainly going to be him.
Yeah, I'd love to see different cities and have their own PLL team. I think that'd be great. And so kind of switching gears to kind of off the field here. So you really come onto the scene as a professional. And I guess how much time and energy do you put into building your own personal brand, whether that's creating opportunities for yourself beyond the field in terms of using your own athletic influence?
Yeah, I mean, that's one thing. Rob Pinnell, who's one of my close friends, business partners, he and I kind of linked up going into my 5th year, and you know, just chatted about the whole Instagram side of things. He's got, you know, a few 100,000 followers, and you know, you can make a living off of this thing. So that was when I kind of began to push into the building my brand side of things. But on top of that, you know, I don't spend a crazy amount of time. I understand the necessity behind it. I've got an agent that kind of handles my endorsement deals and stuff like that. So obviously I'm a New Balance athlete, and a few other companies that makes my life financially a little bit easier. So just continuing to push that. What I've learned is, and what Paul told me, he's like, you put the ball in the back of the net, everything else will take care of itself. So I kind of try to let my field play, do the talking, and then, you know, ride that wave with the social media on top of it.
Yeah, and I think that's a great way to approach it. And I think, but so much of brand building is storytelling. And I strongly believe like content creation is the foundation of that. And so you're going to be joining us for our original series upcoming in Untapped, right? And so that shows a side of sports stars that fans rarely see. And what are you most excited about? What aspects of your life are you most excited to kind of shine through that platform?
Yeah, I think there are a few things. I mean, one of the biggest things I've realized since graduating is I don't do a whole lot besides play lacrosse,
Mm-hmm.
and think about lacrosse and all of that stuff. But I think the biggest thing that people will like to see is the amount of effort that goes into this thing. You know, I've got a lot of lot of soldiers that help me get to where I need to be for game day. You know, I've got a strength coach, I've got a physical therapist, I've got a sports psychiatrist. You know, I've got all of these different things that you know that help me get to where I need to be, and understanding that lacrosse, my biggest goal with this thing is to make it, you know, like how Kobe Bryant used to work, and like how you know, MJ used to, you know, be the first one in the gym, last one to leave, and be able to do this thing full time, and really put in the work that, you know, quite frankly, if I'm being honest, you know, in the MLL days, guys went to work, maybe they touched their stick during the week, and then they showed up on the weekends for a game, and that's great. But, you know, for me, I decided, and I told myself last year that I'm going to go all in on this thing. And, you know, I haven't regretted 1 second of it. And, you know, there's some stresses that come with it, but, you know, all in all, it's, you know, if you're doing what you love and you can go all in on it, that's probably the number one message that I'll hope to leave.
Yeah, we're excited to get down to Philly and do that. And I think, like you said, to be able to put the ball in the back of the net, it takes a lot of work that people really aren't seeing behind the scenes. And so, yeah, we're excited. And so I want to dive into some rapid fire questions before ending with like one larger question here. So one word answers, one phrase, whatever you want, we'll jump right into it. So who was your favorite athlete growing up?
Probably Peyton Manning.
Okay. Who's your favorite athlete to watch in current day sports?
That's a good question.
There's so many talented guys right now across the board.
Yeah, there's a lot of talent in the world right now. I mean, recency bias, but Brady. Yeah.
Well, he's gone now.
Okay, so that if that doesn't count, I mean, obviously he just lost, but Pat Mahomes, he just does respect on the sidearm feeds.
Yeah, he's electric. So you're a football guy, clearly. Are you an Eagles?
Yeah.
Are you an Eagles
Yeah,
fan?
I'm an Eagles fan. Yeah,
So is Jalen Hurts a franchise quarterback?
I think so. I think he's a franchise leader, which
I
is more,
agree. I agree with that.
which is 3/4 of the battle as a quarterback.
Agreed. So what is your best moment of your own sports career or favorite moment?
Running out Lincoln Financial Field, which is the Eagles Stadium, Final Four, Meek Mill, Dreams and Nightmares playing.
Wow. As a Patriots fan, that brings me back to the Super Bowl and gives me nightmares.
I hope it does give you nightmares.
Who is the best offender that you've ever been matched up against on the field?
Sabia. He
Would
just
you
knows
rather?
he just knows everything I do.
Yeah. And now I think I know the answer to this question, seeing that you set the record for most assists in a college lacrosse season. But would you rather score a goal or get an assist?
Yeah, you know the answer to this one.
Yeah. And I think I know the answer to this one too. What is your favorite, or what's your favorite music artist? Or maybe, I guess I was going to go with song, but you would have been Dreams and Nightmares there. But who's your favorite music artist?
I would say Jack Harlow or J. Cole.
Okay. What is the best place that you've ever traveled? Vacation, whatever it may be.
My grandparents used to live in Chestertown, Maryland, and on the water on the Eastern Shore. That's probably my favorite place on earth. So got to say that.
I love it. What is one word that best describes you?
Passionate.
If you could have one superpower, what would it be?
Probably to fly.
That's mine every time. I would love to fly.
Probably.
So that does it for our rapid fire. So, well, one last question here, and we'll get you out of here. But if you had one piece of advice that you wanted to pass along to the general fan that you've learned along your journey to help them in their everyday life, whether they're an athlete or not, I guess, what would that be?
That there is no top of the mountain, and that once you get to a certain level, you're just going to want more. And that's kind of all part of the journey, but understanding that there really is no ceiling unless you set one for yourself. And that's something that Coach T, I remember him telling us that, like at one of the retreats, team retreats that we were on. And for me, I definitely noticed it this year. I was probably playing my best lacrosse in my life. And, I got to the end, attackman of the year, up for MVP, all this stuff. And I was pissed off because I wasn't playing in the championship. I wasn't, the absolute best that I could be. So, if you're a true competitor, there is no top of the mountain. You just gotta keep freaking climbing.
And then I think once you hit that top, and once you win that championship, you're just going to want another one and another one. So I think
just a little taste,
I like that. So no, I'm excited again to get down to Philly, show people really the behind the scenes work that goes into your effort on the field. I think it's going to be a great piece. Thanks for the time today. And yeah, we'll chat soon. Thanks, Grant.
Thanks, Danny. Appreciate it, man.